Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families.
A big warm welcome to everyone and a huge thank you for joining us for the Australian Book Lovers podcast. Our mission is to bring fabulous Australian and Indigenous literature that spans a whole range of genres to book lovers around the globe, as well as fantastic resources and information for passionate authors looking to write their next bestseller. I'm Laurie Bell, science fiction and fantasy author, blogger, flash fiction writer, 100-word prompt writer, bit of everything, and your co-host for today's the Australian Book Lovers podcast. So coming to you from Wurundjeri Woiwurrung land.
Fantastic. I'm also coming to you from Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country, and I'm Veronica Strachan, aka V.E. Patton. I am a fantasy science fiction, memoir, picture book and non-fiction writer, founder and co-host, of course, of episode 136.
Which I was going to say I was.
But you have an amazing interview with an interesting, complex history this author has.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just going to get my notes so that I have it right, because I did have that right in front of me. Sorry. Of course, I was speaking to Stephen Downes, who I actually don't think we've done a blurb of one of his books before, but anyway,
we did Mural because it was a giveaway.
There we go. I was sure that I knew the name. Anyway, so yes, it was wonderful talking to Stephen. I was chatting with him and we were talking about Mural, and as well as his debut book, which was Hand of the Pianists, but also we got into some very interesting chats about all sorts of things and styles of writing, and so hopefully you'll have an enjoyable listen to that one.
Yes, indeed we shall. But in the meantime, we've got other bits and pieces. Lots happening in the writing world. There's so much going on, and I know it's going to be our top kind of news item to think about. So maybe before we do that, let's do some John Koenig-Wares, because,
That's a great idea.
A really good idea?
Excellent. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Have you heard of Apolytus?
No.
Apolytus, Apolytus. This is the moment you realise you are changing as a person. Finally outgrowing your old problems, like a reptile shedding its skin. Already able to twist back around and chuckle at this weirdly antiquated caricature of yourself that will soon come off completely.
That's good.
How about that? That's good, isn't it?
That's good. Yeah. Yes. No, I like that, because being a middle-aged woman that I am, you do go through stages, and you certainly, it is a little bit like shedding a skin, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe not quite as gross, but then again, who doesn't love a good bath? So
a little bit of a body scrub.
Exactly. Bit of a soak. It's lovely. But no, that's a good word. I like that. Because you do go through parts of your life and you think, I'm not that me anymore, or I'm a different me.
No. And in fact, somebody was chatting today in one of the sessions that I was running, and they appreciated somebody with experience come in and talking about where they were at and all the things that had brought them to that moment. And this woman, who's excellent, she said, I realised that I needed to be this level of maturity to be doing this job, because my younger self would not have got here, would not have understood what it needed, whereas I do. And I thought, that's fantastic. That was such a great realisation that she recognised her experience. Yeah, she's a really wonderful person, one of my fabulous students and colleagues, which is great.
Wonderful.
Here's one that's a little bit different. What about a McFeely?
Hmm.
McFeely, totally not serious. It's an adjective. Inexplicably moved by predictable and well-worn sentiments, even if they're trite or obvious or being broadcast blindly to the masses. I will admit that, I feel a bit too when they do the tissue and the little ducky and all those little things. If I ever see the free-to-air ads, I'm a sucker for those. Just bring it on. My bladder is too close to my eyeball.
Puppies, man. Like the get them a home, the puppy, the lost dog's home that's on TV. Oh my God, I cry every single time.
Shocking. Yes. So this is McFeely is from the middle name of Mr. Fred McFeely Rogers. Did you know Mr. Rogers' name was McFeely?
Oh, I did not, but it's a great
true or
name.
not, but anyway, you deserve to be happy. Your feelings matter. You are loved. You are enough. Okay, I've got one more, and that is, oh no, which one was I going to say? Oh yes, this is it. The standard blues. The dispiriting awareness that the twists and turns of your life feel new and profound, but are not unique, marked by the same coming-of-age struggles as millions of others, the same career setbacks, the same family strife, the same learning curve of parenting, which makes even your toughest challenges feel harmless and predictable. Just another remake of the same old story.
Oh, that's a good one. I
That
think
is a good one.
we all go through that one, don't we?
Yeah,
So
and particularly I think as authors, don't we think that someone's already written that story?
Yep.
But we do say to them, this is not the truth, because the way you write that story in your voice
makes it unique.
Yeah, makes it absolutely unique. And if people love those stories and they read lots of them, they're going to want to read your version.
Exactly. And we all get rejections. And while, it spurs similar reactions of rejection, and you react in a pretty typical way, and we all get that. But yeah, it is, we all hit it at different stages, but it's the same sort of feeling and emotion. So you can have that comparison with other writers and go, I know they've gone through this as well. We've all gone through this. It sucks, but trying to let it go. And yet at the time, it still hurts.
Yeah.
It still hurts.
It does indeed. Particularly if you've had a story that you were going to write and then somebody publishes it. And it's like, oh man, that was my idea.
Yeah.
But we've said before, those ideas move on if you don't write them. So,
or if it's a memoir or something very particularly close to the heart, where it is a personal experience, more so than, say, an attack on an alien planet. But when it's pitched as this is who I am, and then someone goes, yeah, no. Oh, ouch. Yeah, that I get that rejection would hurt more.
Yes.
Because ouch.
Yeah, your life has no publishing value. Yeah, right. Okay. Consequently,
anyway,
yes,
great words.
We've got great words. So thank you, John Koenig, the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. I still haven't got to the end. I love reading through it. And some of them are
always good.
Yeah, it's always good. And you can also see on YouTube, he's got some bits and pieces where he puts images to it, and it's lovely. So yeah, it's good. But this is a really nice little hardback, which is kind of, got the little soft texture thing, which I really like. So, and as you can see, look, I
lots of marks.
Lots of marks. I haven't written on this one. I have a terrible habit of highlighting bits in my non-fiction books. Yeah. And then somebody asked me, I know they said, okay, have you got a copy? I said, I'm going to lend it to you, but no judgment. Yeah. They go, what? So it'll have, I won't show you. It's too embarrassing if you're embarrassed about that one. So it has marks and highlights and pencil notes, and this would be good for whatever. So yeah, but means I really love it if the more I look at it. So those are there, but I don't do that to my fiction books, of course.
Oh, that's good. Well, I don't mark them, but I do have highlighted stickers that I put in my Bible copies, which are my reference copies to go back to book 1 and book 2 to find things. So I do get that. It's like, what did I write? I'm writing book 5. Where did I put that?
Yes. Well, I'm reading an arc by the fabulous K.M. Allen at the moment, and that is
Wonderful.
her writing and authoring checklist. Oh my
Cannot wait
goodness.
for that one to come out.
It is really good. Such great advice in there. And I'm about 2/3 of the way through, and I think I'm going to have to re-edit entirely. Sort of stuff. I'm certainly going to rewrite the first chapter. That's not going out because, as I said to Kate, where the hell was this book, 2 years
Yes.
ago?
Well,
But
that's
anyway,
good. That's really good
good.
feedback. So there you
Yes.
go, listeners
Yes.
and viewers. When
Keep
that
your
one comes
eye out
out,
for the
we'll
writing
be talking
checklist.
about that a bit more.
We certainly will. And we'll get Kate on because she's
Yes,
lovely to chat with.
that would
And
be great.
she is, of course, not the evil twin. She is a twin, but not the evil twin, as she
Correct.
says. And a
Yep.
cat woman as well. She's got the beautiful Luna, and
Yes.
I can't think what the other one's
Her
name is.
cats are so fluffy. They
They're
are so
gorgeous.
fluffy. They're so cute.
Yes. Very good. All right.
Anyway, I start
Time for some
sneezing just
news.
looking at them.
Ah!
New
Time for some news.
Yes.
News.
You're probably going to discuss this as well. It's the biggest news drop that's dropped this week, so we probably do need to mention it. They released the I should say, so the Atlantic has gotten in the news a lot. We're not going to talk about its current story that everyone else is talking about, but however, the Atlantic also dropped about, was it 4 days ago, 5 days ago, something like that, that they've actually got the database now of the books and writing, and it is genuinely writing from everywhere that was used to, put it politely, used to train AI for Meta. We could refer to it in different ways, but anyway. And I did want to point out that on you can, if you Google the Australian Society of Authors, they've got, even if you're not a member, you can actually go on via their LinkedIn page, via Blue Sky, via Threads, via all the social medias, that they've got it pinned and linked, that they have a Google Docs, just a checklist if you have had your books taken and used to train AI. They're putting together, they're getting definitely without permission. They're putting together the list so that they can take it to the Australian government and to really highlight just how many Australians this has affected. So this is for Australian authors, Australian authors that have been affected. So if you go on to they've got a form. They just want to be able to demonstrate the scale of the impact upon creators and to advocate to the government on creators' behalf. So, you don't have to be a member. You can just go on there, fill in the form. It just wants to know the titles and how many of your books have been used in this inappropriate manner. But it's also scientific papers. They have taken everything. So even if you're a scientist or a professor or just anyone out there who's written papers, please double check yourself on the and they do have a link to the Atlantic page where you can actually search, and you search for your name. So yeah, one of mine was taken. Fortunately, not all of them, but at least one. But quite a lot of Australian authors I've seen pop up online in the last couple of days saying all of their books have been used. So it's,
I think Emily Marnie
really
also said some of her books that have been translated, even the
it has been just worldwide, but also it is so pervasive.
Yeah.
So make sure you do fill in the form and get that through to the ASA, and hopefully they can take it further on our behalf, I guess. Whether we get an answer, who knows? But it's been a big story.
It is big news because people say, well, you just there's lots of sides of the conversation. I won't say it's an argument, but there's lots of sides of the conversation. Some people saying, well, it's technology and AI is here to stay. You've got to get used to it. Well, yes, but ethical use of AI and recognition and acknowledgement of people's work and payment compensation for their work. If you were to buy one copy, surely let alone you're now using it to inform whatever. They're going to make squillions, of course.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that they are referring to it as the database of books that have been pirated. So they're not purchased books. These are books that are on pirated databases. So it just sort of cuts to the heart, doesn't it, when you've put so much effort.
Indeed. And I was just going to say, the ASA was saying, when the average wage of an Australian author is about 18,500 per year.
Yeah. And that's the big, those are the big stars.
That's right. Yeah. If you take a few big stars out of that, it's a lot less. I don't think I've ever made $1,000. So no, it's the people that are trying to make a living from this, to have this kind of thing unguided or unboundaried, is incredibly disappointing.
Particularly when you think if their technology IP was taken, they would be up in arms and going to court to sue about it.
Yes.
And yet authors' books that are published are seen as fair game. It is heartbreaking for those that have spent a long time, like we all have, writing, putting your heart and soul into your books, wanting that recognition, and then
getting it out. So please jump onto the ASA website for sure. All right. Any more news from your side of the screen?
I did want to just highlight that, and this was released in February, so it's possible a few of you have jumped onto it already, but on the australianreads.org.au, I may have even mentioned it before, I don't know. The Understanding Australian Readers report has been released.
Yes.
And they've got the full report that you can go through, but they've also got this fantastic summary with the key findings, which is brilliant. And it's the understanding of Australian readers, in particular amongst Australians aged 16 and up. So it is taking in YA as well, maybe not so much middle grade, but certainly YA. And some of the key findings, which is really interesting, is that many Australians want to read more. So they indicating in the surveys and all the follow-ups that they want to read more, but they read less than they intend to, I guess. And that is an opportunity, obviously, for all the writers out there. We want to get more readers, but it's that one's a good one. So they 54% or 54.9% of readers and 49% of non-readers indicate they read less than they intend to. So that's really interesting. It goes through some, different readers and different approaches. So e-readers and online readers and all your bits and pieces, your infrequent readers, it has a breakdown of, which is interesting. But the important ones that I always find this as an ex-teacher, is having the books on display, letting them be found, letting kids and family members just see. The more people see books, the more it might pop that into their head. It's like, oh yeah, that's right, I could read a book. And selling the joys and comforts of reading, that it is a comfort, that it is something that you can let yourself get sucked into. So, and of course, the other one that I'd really love to see more of, that I want to see even more of, is that modelling, the modelling behaviour by parents and teachers and workers and colleagues and whoever you are and what have you. One of the girls in my work, she was telling me she's been reading more this year than she's read ever, and she's really happy about it. So just having and talking about books, I think, just has that encouragement level. So yeah, get on to reading that. australiareads.org.au. They've got the full report there. I suggest everyone have a good read.
Have a little Guernsey. Beautiful. Okay.
Alrighty.
I've got a little bit more from the Australian Society of Authors.
Oh, cool.
They have new benefits for the style file illustrators, because we don't always focus on our illustrators, except when we've got picture books. You can submit your portfolio. So what you can do, they've got new promotional plans for the ASA style file. So there's a curated portfolio website. It's become a kind of respected resource for, or a source of high quality illustrators for the publishing community. So if you have a picture book or a middle grade, you know, and you're looking for one, you can actually look at the Australian illustrators, which is really good.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
they get an SEO enhanced portfolio promoted to the book industry, and they also get exclusive access to their brand new virtual literary speed dating event, Picture Book Matchmaker. So that's a really good thing as well. So you jump onto the ASA Authors, look under news, and you'll see as of March 19 this year, new benefits for the style file illustrators. So that quickly without worrying. Did we mention the Indie Book Awards, the 2025 winners?
Oh, I think we might have mentioned that they were coming out soon.
Okay, we were shortlisted.
Did we?
No worries.
Yeah.
So this year, the winners, Book of the Year is Dusk by Robbie Arnott from Picador, Australia. Fiction is Dusk by Robbie Arnott, Picador, Australia. Non-fiction, Three Wild Dogs and the Truth by Marcus Zuzak, also from Picador. The debut fiction was All the Bees in the Hollows by Lauren Keegan from Affirm Press. Illustrated non-fiction, The Paintings of Chris Canning by Chris Canning, Thames and Hudson, Australia. The children's book section was won by All the Beautiful Things by Katrina Nanistad, and that does look absolutely gorgeous. And the young adult, this is an interesting one, My Family and Other Suspects by Kate Emery, and that was in Ellen and Unwin's Children. So jump on there, support our Australian authors again. The Indie Book Awards is excellent. That's just at indiebookawards.com.au, and you can look up all the shortlisters and last year's winners and all those kind of things.
Fantastic.
One more lot of news I wanted to share was about writing community, because it just sort of sprung into my mind that with the support that everybody's doing and saying, isn't this terrible about the AI, and support each other, and the ASA is jumping, there is quite a strong writing community in Australia. But how do you get into it? So you were mentioning when you first started on Twitter, one of our authors who was one of the first people you started, and when we had Oz Writes on, sorry, it's not that Twitter anymore, but that was great. Now lots of
but Oz Writes and the 6 a.m. Writers Group, and there's so many online, Blue Skies picking them up with all the book threads and the reading threads, and so is Threads. Speaking of, so there are there's definitely a lot of online community writing groups that you can get onto. I mean, my friend was telling me her mum's a part of a local writing group that they're all working on their memoirs that I thought sounded absolutely magnificent. I'm like, that's so cool. Good. So there are definitely groups out there. There's local groups, libraries are great for them. And then, there's a very strong Australian presence online. Which if you jump onto the various social medias
and do those kind of things. But if you are not sure, you can always start your own. Alison Tate, who is part, who's a middle grade author, fabulous middle grade author.
She's got a podcast as well.
Has got a podcast and does a lot of the courses through the Australian Writers Centre. She had a nice little blog, which was how I found my writing community, and you can too. And it's not a recent one, it's one from 2022. But it had, I've made it go very small. Here we go, we're back. But she asked 9 authors how they found their writing community, and you could volunteer. Could go to writing events and volunteer as part of the event staff. You could just show up, go to writers' rooms and go to signings and book launches and that kind of thing, chat to the person next to you. You can amplify, this person has spent, she amplifies other writers' voices and found that was really helpful. And then, that's Kate Forsyth, who, of course, is one of our most fabulous Australian writers.
And of course, reading groups and reviewing, writing reviews and reading about books and being a part of a readers group and just talking about books.
All those things. So invest, take yourself up to a writing course, one that's kind of tailored for you, because I've been to a couple where people are writing other things and I thought, that's going to be hard. They all got to talk about that. And I'm, genre fiction is a little bit twitchy, and plus I can get old and cranky and being a bit of an introvert, despite loving to get on the radio. But I'm really just talking to you, Laurie. Fundamental piece.
That's what we do. We just talk about books. It's fun.
We do. And I looked at, we're trying to bring in the other states. So Writing WA has got some really helpful things for readers and for writers. They've got, of course, the literati directory, but they talk about if you're unsure how to get started, go ring one of the writers' centres and ask them. And a lot of their notice boards and things have some of the regular writing groups on them. So,
and of course, there is a writers' centre in pretty much all
yeah,
states
every
and
state, yeah.
territory,
Yes.
and also all the writers' festivals. There's a heap of
Yes.
writers' festivals, and they
Yes.
again cross all states and territories. So look
Yep.
up your local writers' festivals as well, and
Yeah.
go
Do all
along
of
and
that. Do
listen to
all of
people
those
talk about
things.
books.
Yeah, because not everybody can run a fabulous podcast like we do. But
Yeah.
but if you want to get on our podcast, all you have to do is be an Australian author
Yes. Yep.
and list your book on our website, which is free. And not only is it free, but we share it with our hundreds of newsletter subscribers. We post about them on socials when they're on the front page. We
Yep.
book spotlight them in the episode,
We do.
and we try and get as many people on the air as we can.
Exactly. So bring it on. And we've had
Yes.
quite a few quite a few books submitted lately
Oh,
for the
yes.
website.
Absolutely. I've been, my little fingers in my wrist is really sore, hammering, because you've got to put them on, then put them on the book spotlight list and put them on there. Yeah, so yes. And also, can you see the stack on my desk? Yeah, I got 2 more books in the mail from Fabulous
Yes.
Transatland. So
Woohoo.
I've got at least probably 3 newsletters worth I've got to get on. But I try and only send out a newsletter once a month because, well, let's face it, that's when I can get around to it. But
And also Australia Post is really expensive, so we can't send them out more often.
That's right. Of course, if you want to donate a little, you can jump onto our
Please do.
website and support the pod, which will help us pay to get some of those books out and pay for the platform. But yes,
Absolutely.
unless we win Touch Lotto, which we're not winning this week.
Yeah, no.
I think it's time for book
Spotlights.
Yep.
Book spotlights. Okay, so book number 1, which we have, is called Neeka and the Missing Key, which is a Tina Strachan book.
And it's Strachan.
Well, see, you say Strachan, I say Strachan,
I definitely say Strachan, but
Tina
she
says
says Strachan.
That's right. So let me read about Neeka and the Missing Key. When you live in a zoo, things can get wild. 11-year-old Neeka Wilder has always loved animals. She wants to be a vet one day, like her mum, who is the head vet at Wilder Zoo, where Neeka and her family live. Neeka is a great help to the zoo staff in caring for the animals. And she also takes videos of exciting events at the zoo. When the videos are nominated for a big award, Neeka wants to make one more video to help win it. But when Rebel, the cheeky red panda, won't cooperate, her zoo key goes missing and she's grounded for a month. It's a race against the clock to create a new video in time for the awards. That sounds so much fun.
Yes, and beautiful illustrations, talking about illustrators. So Tina Strachan, who we interviewed a couple of episodes ago, is a children's book author who has spent 20 years working and studying wildlife conservation, including through zookeeping, vet nursing, research, and as a conservation officer. So these unique experiences provide ideas and inspiration for her debut middle grade series, Wild Zoo. She lives on the Gold Coast with her hubby, 2 boys, and their cavoodle. So you can, pretty sure it's episode 134. And I had a lovely chat with Tina and we discussed why she says Strachan, I say Strachan, and exactly the same spelling. So no nepotism there at all.
No, definitely not. And so book 2, we have Cupid's Kiss by Anna Ceguerra, which is a science fiction. So Cupid, a 35-year-old scientist, is unlucky in love but successful in his career. When the CEO of a multinational perfume corporation asks him to develop an aphrodisiac using his trained mosquitoes, he jumps at the chance. At the same time, the woman he's been chatting with on an online dating app has finally agreed to meet up. But what Cupid doesn't know is that he's about to go from bitten to smitten.
That
That's
sounds like a
great
hoot.
blurb.
Yeah.
Except the mosquitoes just giving me crawlies, but
but they're trained. They're trained, Laurie. All right.
yeah.
Anna Ceguerra lives in Sydney, Australia, of course, with her beloved dog Patchy. Having spent many years building a career in science and software development, she loves weaving futuristic themes into unique and exciting stories. And of course, we've got another book of Anna. So tell us about the next one.
So the next one is Get Off My Lawn, which is a middle grade. These blurbs sound so much fun.
They do.
2090, so the year 2090, retired millennial Olivia has fallen into a familiar routine. Gardening, painting, keeping the stray cat off the grass, until Dottie, her new 7-year-old neighbour, starts fiddling with her pristine front lawn. Olivia must choose between the memories of her past or the promise of companionship. A funny story of female friendship spanning generations.
There you go. That does
That's
sound
so
like a
cool.
hoot.
It
Yes.
does, doesn't it?
All right.
That's the retired life I want.
Yes.
Just hanging about the house, being a cranky old lady.
All right. Tell us about the next one.
So the next one is called Dear Friend, a warm hug for your mind and soul, which is by Christina Marie Giuffré. Your companion for navigating life's twists and turns ever feel like, oh, sorry. Your companion for navigating life's twists and turns. Ever feel like life is one long game of musical chairs, and when the music stops, you're the only one left standing? This book offers you the seat that you've been waiting for, a space where you belong exactly as you are. Written from the heart by someone who has walked this path, this is more than just a book. It's a spiritual self-help guide and your companion for navigating life's ups, downs, and unexpected plot twists with unwavering self-love. Whether you're struggling with self-doubt, emotional well-being, work-life balance, or are simply in need of a motivational pick-me-up, you'll find practical tools, humor, and a safe space to explore difficult emotions and invest in your personal growth. Celebrate diversity, find inclusion and belonging, build emotional resilience, and be your own biggest cheerleader. This inspirational guide will help you find strength in vulnerability, cultivate self-compassion and kindness, and rediscover the unstoppable potential within you. Remember, you are worthy, loved, and more than enough. Shine like the star you are. I like that bio. That's
lovely.
That's a great blurb.
Yeah, it's
Everyone should feel that way.
Everyone should, including
Yeah.
my doggies. I don't know if you heard them. They were barking like
I
maniacs.
didn't.
Excellent. We'll just keep moving on. All right.
Mhm.
Christina Marie's bio. She's originally from Perth in WA with European heritage, and she now calls Gibraltar home. So with over 20 years of career experience and a lifetime of insight, Christina is a dynamic leader, coach, and passionate advocate for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. She creates environments where everyone can feel seen, heard, safe, and empowered to thrive. As a queer and neurodiverse individual living with ADHD and dyscalculia, her personal journey through anxiety, depression, and PTSD has shaped her unique perspective on compassion, resilience, and growth. With warmth, humour, and deep empathy, Christina feels that no matter the challenge, there's always a path forward to drive meaningful transformation in both business and life. Well, what a fantastic way to bring your own life experience into helping others. That's really lovely.
Definitely.
Yeah, we've got Christina on our list to chat to, so we will get to you, Christina. Don't you worry about that.
Excellent. And our last book for today, book 5, The Players by Deborah Pike, which is a contemporary. The 20th century is drawing to a close, and there's a play to put on. But the collaboration of a bunch of ragtag youths is rarely straightforward. The lead actor has stormed off in a huff, a cast member has been caught up in a fistfight, while the director has fallen into a deep depression. What is it about directors? Amidst the chaos, actress Veronica
Oh,
is
not me.
it's just the perfect name. Actress Veronica is determined the show must go on, even if she's facing her own inner romantic turmoil. The Players takes us from a play rehearsal set in an orchard in Western Australia to the heady experimental theatre world of Paris, to a foreign office in London, to the streets of Berlin, and to a school in post-independent East Timor, as we become immersed in the tangled tales of 6 unforgettable characters. An Australian coming-of-age story, The Players, is about the lives and loves of 20-somethings across 10 years and 6 countries, who meet in a university theatre group and never quite leave the drama behind.
Like that. Nice finishing line. All right. Deborah Pike, her debut novel, The Players, was released by Fremantle Press in 2024. She was born in Zimbabwe, moved to Hong Kong as a child, and then grew up in Perth. She's got a PhD from the University of Sydney and now teaches literature at Notre Dame, Sydney. Oh, I hope they've had lots of trouble with their IT over there, but I'm sure Deborah hasn't been involved. She is a winner of an Australian Government Award for University Teaching. She's travelled widely, living in Paris for several years, where she held positions at Shakespeare and Company Bookstore. That sounds good.
Yeah.
The OECD, oh, I love that. Yeah, they put out some great reports. We're talking about reports, but the non-fiction nerds amongst us. The University of Paris VIO, so University of Paris 7th, and the Paris Institute of Political Studies. She's also the author of an academic monograph on the subversive art of Zelda Fitzgerald. So that is a great bio. So Deborah, also, we have a copy of The Players, and that is going to be in the next newsletter, The Players. So I hope you listen carefully to that blurb, because you might want to put your 2 cents in. And all you have to do is jump on the website, go to Book Lovers, enter your name and email, and you are in the winning for all of those things. There you go. Some fabulous book spotlights.
Yes.
Time for the interview, Laurie.
Yes. Well, we'll just jump straight into me chatting with Stephen Downes. Book lovers, I am delighted to have with me today Stephen Downes. Stephen, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks very much, Laurie, for having me.
Now, I'm coming to you from Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country in Melbourne, and I understand so are you.
Yes, I am. Wurundjeri Woiwurrung for me.
Beautiful. That's fantastic. So tell me, I do want to talk about your writing journey and how you were able to put your concept to paper and then put that to print. I'm really interested in learning about your journeys.
I'm very happy to talk about The Hands of Pianist if you like. Mural is the most recent. They're both books that, although I have influenced by W.G. Sebald, the great German novelist of the end of the 20th century, one of the most important writers ever, I guess, in that last bit of the 20th century, and certainly into the 21st. He really turned upside down with his 4 prose fictions, as he called them. The idea of what a novel should be. He didn't call them novels, but I thought at the time I began reading Sebald, as soon as it came out in English. He wrote in German, but lived in England and supervised, if you like, all the translations that other people did of his work. But essentially, Sebald got rid of the way plot can damn a fictional book, in that all the writers seem to be interested in is engineering a fiction. And as Sebald used to say, he would look at modern fiction and see the authors as directors, scene shifters, costume designers, artistic persons who were manipulating, if you like. Sebald worked in a very different way. And so I thought, having had a background all my life in journalism and having written quite a number of books by the 2000s, I suppose, I thought I could do this. I could give it a go, because this style of writing is a mixture of fact and fiction. And quite often there's amazing mergers of the people telling the story, so that you have to concentrate, you have to keep up, you have to give yourself to Sebald's books, as you do to The Hands of Pianists and Mural. he used to use the rather descriptive idea that writing books was, in his style, was like watching a dog in a paddock. It doesn't go in an engineered straight line. It goes all over the place wherever it smells something interesting, with its nose down, snout down. It's going all over the shop. And his prose fictions were like that. They were discursive. They changed subject matter. They changed people, and yet they were also very lyrical. And as people have said, including Harold Bloom and Nicholas Royal in Britain, Harold Bloom, the great American critic, and Nick Royal, who's an academic in Britain, who wrote a book called The Uncanny. The best literature is uncanny in that it speaks to us in a foreign language that somehow or other we understand. And if you think about that, if you can, and I think a lot of this comes back to style. I'm very finicky, I suppose, about style of writing, which creates art. Style creates art. You get these things happening because your style has been honed over decades, in my case, and you worry about things like syntax and split infinitives and the wrong word in the wrong place in a sentence and the wrong word full stop. And you get that idea from Zabel, and I hope you get it from the hands of pianists and mural, that this person not only writes interesting stories about whatever's happening in the book, and a lot of different things happen in my books, but he or she is also interested in creating something that will last, something of value in an artistic sense. And I think there's not enough of that in Australian literature. There's tons of it going on in England now, but not so much. We tend to be, the publishers are very conservative and, of course, worried. Of course they are, about their running businesses. They have to make profits, so they put on authors who write stories. So I hope that answers your question in a roundabout kind of way, Laurie.
I love it. I absolutely love it. In fact, let me ask the question then from what you were saying. So do you think that the Australian market and audience expectations and what readers are looking for these days means that we're not taking those risks with great books?
Absolutely. And there are simply fewer readers. Most readers are women. 25% of people never read a book from January the 1st to December 31. Another 25% will occasionally look at a book, so that's half the people. And another 25% might, read 2 or 3 books through a year, not necessarily fiction. And the final 25% are book lovers and readers who will read everything. My mural, the book came out in September, which I'm very proud of, and it's bloody good. People have different interests now, and one of them is not reading.
Which is why we are certainly doing what we can to promote
good
book
on
lovers.
You. And may I thank you for your job and what you're doing. It's fantastic.
You're welcome. Well, let me tell our lovely listeners and watchers out there all about Muriel. So I've got the blurb here that I want to read. Muriel is a haunting confession by a psychopath known only as D. Held in a secure facility, he has been asked by his psychiatrist to write down his thoughts, admissions, anxieties, and uncertainties. They are at first revealed through the stories of other people's lives and obsessions. Specifically, D is preoccupied with a British man who spent his early years as a school teacher in Australia before becoming a renowned sexologist. Dee is consumed by Australia's most prolific public artist, a man whose highly erotic watercolours are at odds with his stained glass church windows. Dee writes of his meeting with a boyhood friend. He recounts the true tale of a Frenchman who went mad because he believed prehistoric stones in Brittany were shifting. Wow. I have to say that that is so picturesque. There is some absolutely amazing hooks you've got going on there. How did you come up with the idea for Muriel?
I'll just correct that. It's not how the word "true" got into that blurb about the man who ended up doing dreadful things in Brittany, because that's complete fiction. That tale is utter and complete fiction. It has
Is
no
it? Tell me
factual
more.
base at all. I am French by declaration, as they say, as well as Australian. My wife is French. We used to visit there a lot when we were both a lot more healthy, and we know the Brittany and Normandy side of things, area of France pretty well. And I don't know how these stories come up, but it just cropped up. I had the idea, wouldn't it be interesting to investigate the mind of a psychopath who was also intelligent, because we think that they're all stupid, the people who do, serial killers and all the rest of it, and some of them might be. But I wanted to contrast somebody who's well-read, who's travelled a lot, visited a lot of things, done a lot of thinking about things, because I think that shows in the text. Who also commit, and we don't know what he does. I've never asked him either, the narrator. So he's done these dreadful things, and here's this man who's fairly erudite and is interested in so much stuff that is more than sort of run-of-the-mill, day-to-day, everyday street stuff. He's actually interested in more intellectual things, and it shows in what he says in the book. And I want readers to think that how can this be? How can he be true? How can this happen? And several reviewers online have said, well, one wanted to know what the crimes that Dee had committed, but most people say at the end they didn't care. They found him fascinating, and they didn't want to know what he did. Yeah. And the mural, of course, refers to the murals that were done by the second person, the Melbourne artist, Napier Waller, who people might know, listeners might know about his best known stained glass windows. They're in a part of the War Memorial in Canberra, but he also has several in churches in Melbourne. And alongside these, as a younger man, he did some of the most erotic watercolours ever painted in Australia.
Wow.
And it's interesting in that he lost his right arm, his painting arm, in World War One. And as soon as he got back to Melbourne, he was decommissioned, of course, and sent back on a hospital ship. And as soon as he got back, he started teaching his left hand what his right used to do, and ended up his most famous paintings and artwork were all done with the left hand when he was a right-hander, now absent.
Wow, that's an amazing story.
Yes. Well, he's mixed in it because both he and the sexologist were obsessed by things. And he makes the point very early in the book that obsessive people need some kind of release, otherwise the hose bursts. And these two blokes, the books in Mural, the sexologist found it in a lifetime of collecting data about sex and commenting on it. He wrote The Psychology of Sex, 6 volumes from the late 19-teens, I think, up into the 1930s.
Wow.
Lock Ellis, people might know the name. And then Waller, of course, also was conceptualized in this way of having been somebody who ended up with some kind of a passion for big murals and stained glass windows.
All right. So let me just tell people a little bit about yourself so that I can get into my next question. So I'll just read your bio that I have here. Stephen Downes is a writer, journalist, and editor who lives in Melbourne. Stephen Downes' debut novel, The Hands of Penis, was shortlisted for the 2022 Australian Prime Minister's Literary Awards. Judges described it as extraordinary. He's published some dozen non-fiction books and a novella. Now, you can correct me on this one. Adagio, is that correct?
Adagio.
Adagio.
Yeah, adagio, like in music, yeah.
Beautiful. Adagio for simple clarinet. His recent short stories have been longlisted and shortlisted in prestigious UK prizes. That's wonderful. Last Meal won the 2020 Fiction Factory Prize, and his non-fiction books include A Lasting Record, Blackie, and Paris on a Plate. In other lives, he's covered a Middle East war for Agence
France Press. Yep.
Beautiful. Thank you for pronouncing that for me. Reported on Iraq and covered a New Caledonian insurrection, wrote leading articles for The Age and the Herald Sun, was for several years a feature writer on The Age, and as a freelancer was renowned for decades as Australia's toughest restaurant critic. There is so many stories I'm sure that you have. For many years, he presented his own training programs on the power of courtesy. In the main, his clients were corporate executives, bureaucrats, and professionals. And you, I believe, have also presented many hundreds of hours of teaching and training to undergraduates and graduates. In 2019, you co-edited Verge, Monash University Publishing's annual anthology of short writing. And that same year, were awarded PhD in creative writing with a doctorate's major component in prototype of The Hands of Penis. Lastly, you enjoy, or I should say love, conducting a choir of words on a page, whether they're yours or mine. So, Stephen, tell me, as a journalist, how do you go with the fiction in your novels?
Well, I think this goes back to what the essence of the Sebeldian style, W.G. Sebald, S-E-B-A-L-D, for listeners who perhaps aren't acquainted with him. And that style very easily on the page mixed fact and fiction. That's what intrigued me about it initially. And so that's what I tried to do. I said to myself, I can do this. I think if you want to do things like this, the key skill is to be able to write, and you write only by writing and read everything, of course, but it's handy too to read books on style, Strunk and White and all the great books that there have been about writing. There are many. I have one in a draft that will never get published, but I think it's a good book.
That's a shame. Never say never, Stephen. Never say never.
How to write short sentences, which Marcel Proust should have read, because I'm having a bit of a wade through volume 1. I've read bits and pieces of Proust, but I'm now in Swan in Love, and sometimes a single sentence can go a page and a half. So I'm more interested in trying to avoid that by breaking things up into sentences. Short sentences read better. They're easier to read. You read faster with short sentences. So how did I do it? I just did it and saw if it worked. It seemed to work, although no Australian publisher would publish the book that was shortlisted for the Prime Minister's Literary Awards.
Amazing.
I found a publisher people who were also musicians, but they publish enormous amounts of literary fiction, husband and wife, elderly husband and wife, who live in Vermont in northeast United States, and they were delighted to publish The Hands of Pianists. And then, of course, it went on to be shortlisted for the 2022 Prime Minister's Awards. It should have won. We was robbed.
Yeah. Oh.
So anyway, no, I don't think it's the sort of thing that worries. It's like playing the piano, which I'm interested in. I wanted to be a concert pianist, and of course my parents said no, 60 odd years ago. And
Still hurts.
I'm writing a book about it as we speak. So,
wow.
Yes, that's it. I'm trying to play for my wife and my 4 grandchildren who are little, a Beethoven sonata before I die.
Wow.
And I'm giving myself a deadline and up to January next year when I turn 80. So so I've got 9 months left.
You will get
I'm going okay on it, I suppose, but I think it could be an interesting book. It's like a diary because both my wife and I aren't in the best of health, and so health comes into it as well.
Oh, wow. And it's interesting because your debut novel being about music and pianos, and then this lovely second, Muriel, which is, of course, creative in the painting area and in, murals. So why do you think creativity is so pivotal to your novels?
Creativity is what you do when you write. As a feature writer, everything I wrote, and we're talking about in the late 70s into the early 80s. I was there till I was 1986, I think, when I started out more or less as a full-time restaurant critic. And but certainly in my feature writing days, I tried to make interviews, say, with people very creative, in other words, worth reading, and that had a lyrical elements to it. Who's Catch-22 bloke? I interviewed him for The Age a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
And began the piece by saying that, there's a catch-22 in interviewing, and I wish I've had a mental blank, but people
Joseph Heller.
Heller.
Heller. I knew it. I'm like, I have to find it.
I began by saying there's a catch-22 in interviewing Joseph Heller. The more you interview him, the less you know about him, or something. So you try to be creative, or I certainly did, when I was writing feature articles for The Age. I still value and appreciate those pieces I wrote. So it goes back an awful long time. I've written about, yes, you mentioned the Paris Diary. Well, that was just one off the thing, but I've written about proper biography of the greatest American-born pianist, William Capell, who died in an air crash at the age of 31, but on the way back from Australia, a very exhausting tour he'd done here. And the Australian pilots were at fault. They barreled the plane into the mountains south of San Francisco Airport, doing the wrong thing in the way they were coming into land. But Capell was hugely talented, and he would have made a really great, great pianist of the 20th century. He was already absolutely a sublime pianist in many ways. So I wrote a book about him, and that includes fiction and reportage, and of course an awful lot of research, which I think you can't deny. The best writing relies on a lot of close observation and detail, and that's another thing that perhaps people listening might like to hear or jot down, that whether you're whether you're me or the next person or Virginia Woolf as she did it or Marcel Proust, their amount of detail structured into what they write is just phenomenal. Phenomenal.
So you say you
Dickens.
did a lot of research. What kind of research did you do?
Well, just everything. Wherever it came up, I would look for, whether it's mural or the hands of pianists. I think you research the factual parts of the book as much as you throw your time into being creative with the fictional part, the fictive stuff. And I mean, there are so many outlets. If you've been, a journalist for, how long's it been? When I was 13 and did the sub-district seconds cricket scores on a Saturday afternoon. Would roll the pennies across four times an afternoon and give the score, Paran, South Melbourne, so-and-so. Freddie Nurk, 3 for 53, and Billy Bloggs, 6 for 60. And I'd look in the paper, the Sporting Globe in the pink, and the last edition was my last for the day.
Wow.
And look at all the mistakes, because you dictated your every 1 hour or half an hour, whatever it was, you dictated for each edition. And the number of mistakes was incredible. And so you learn very quickly. I was only a young teenager then, and then did university journalism and then ended up at The Age. But you learn pretty quickly not to make mistakes and to check things over and over and over and over again.
So your editing skills would be quite up there when it comes to being an author, where a lot of the creativity comes in writing.
My editing skills are phenomenal. I have one client left, and I charge a lot per hour, but they get from turning accountant speak and financial stuff articles about accounting standards and auditing standards, and this is a newsletter put out by forensic accountants. It's pretty gluey and gluggy when it gets to me, and it ends up beautiful by the time it comes out.
Very good value in just editing in general.
They don't mind paying the money. And in fact, they're staggered that their copy can be turned into something so good. So,
that's excellent.
Yeah.
So when you published and you found your publishers, how did that journey go for you? How different was that from your journalistic career?
Well, it was all about, mainly I started because I was a recognised restaurant critic for the Australian Financial Review initially, and then lots of others, Gourmet Traveller and The Age and the Sunday Age, and the last job was Herald Sun. But in the 80s, I was, very well recognised and known throughout Australia as the first national restaurant critic, the first person to score restaurants, first person to actually know something about food and cooking, because I'd lived in France and married into a French family that was associated with food. So all those things were important, and publishers took me on to write about food and books and restaurants, essentially. But then I did write a book about the death of my cat, Blackie, which is probably my biggest seller, and that was about 2006. And then Adagio, which is very Zebaldian, Adagio for a Simple Clarinet, came out, I think, a year or two later. So there have been, I wrote a history of Australian restaurants and cooking from the Sydney Olympics, from the Melbourne Olympics 56 to the Sydney Olympics in 2000. And that won a lot of awards at the time. So I've written on a lot of stuff. Food is probably predominant, but I also like to get away and write about music and piano playing and classical music.
Obviously, writing as a critic, we're talking a very different writing style to genre fiction. And your genre fiction is a little bit of a mash, genre mash. So there is a lot of psychological, how do I put this, trauma, um, acceptance, working through. How would you describe it?
I don't like the word genre. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, I think it inhibits a lot of writers. I think, oh, I've got to write romance fiction. Oh, I know how to make $1 million out of writing books. And let me tell you, I've written lots and I've made peanuts out of them, basically nothing. So don't ever think you're going to be a hit unless you bring in AI and work at your plots
Oh, no.
and have the most awful characters who are shallow. I'd call a lot of this kind of stuff bedtime stories for adults, essentially. I think I've deviated from the point, but the point is that you just do it. What was the essence of your question again, Laurie?
So the psychological,
Oh, yes.
delving into the psychological trauma of your characters.
No, I just think you have to do that. You have to wonder what they're thinking all the time. And in fiction, if you're writing, as I did with Mural, um, a fictional character banged up in a secure facility somewhere in Australia, you have to get into his head and try to think what he might be thinking. And I was interested in wondering what he might be thinking, as we said a few minutes ago. That was the whole interest for me in this character. What would it be like if a very evil man was also extremely smart, well educated, and was interested in the intellect? So that was what started me off on Mural.
And with Hands of Penis, you have 3 deaths that are referenced. The main character's sister obviously goes through quite a lot of trauma, and the main part of your story, they die. There is a suicide in the story. How do you find delving into the darker side of the material?
Well, it doesn't worry me, I suppose, because that's my nature. I carry grudges, as a lot of people do, against their parents all their lives, and so I have no trouble looking at dark sides. I live with it every day, and it's not something that worries me. I think Craven calls me a magician of the dark or something, or a writer of of great. What's he say? Downes understands the music of madness and its comedy. He understands what it's like for Virgil and Dante to see the stars again, and he understands the depth of sadness in a Hopkins poem about trees being felled. He is a master of the matter of darkness and desolation. He's also a fast and funny writer who can comprehend why a deranged life can be close to the centre of high art. So
That's a brilliant review. I was going to ask, as a critic, how do you take the feedback?
Oh, I think that's great. Yeah, I love it. There are a lot of critiques online of Mural, and they're all very positive. But some people will say, I didn't know what to make of this book. I didn't quite see the point of the fiction and the fact. And they clearly haven't read Zabald at all. And of course, they're used to highly plotted, simplified fiction rather than somebody trying to write some kind of literary art. And I don't mind that. That's the way they are. That's what they think. That's up to them what they think. But I would say that it's good for people to read a bit more widely. And Zabald, for me, I've read his 4 prose fictions. Well, I had to doing the PhD, but I've read them many times and enjoy them every time I read them.
So tell me then, what is a regular writing day for you?
When I feel like it. which is, I've written 3 chapters of this funny book about playing a Beethoven sonata, and I'm into another chapter, but I've got to do a lot of research about a particular piano company, and so I've got to do that. I have another novel which is very easily accessible, which I wrote many years ago, which is available. I've got a Potboiler novel, which is terrific, a hostage crisis set in the Hoover Dam in America.
Oh, wow.
It's fantastic. It's terrific. I love it. And so do some of my mates. But try and get that published. It's impossible these days. Even if somebody like myself who has several books behind him, and I've written a novella that includes Indigenous aspects, and I think it's very good. It's a crime novella, and no Australian publisher would touch that. I'm halfway through detective fiction. I think a lot of detective fiction doesn't take the tremendous advantage of being able to characterise to the nth degree your detective, your chief detective, and his offsiders and all the rest of it. And I've written one that I hope is coming up okay, but at the moment I'm just not writing that either. So they're all. I suppose I can say I don't have to write, and I don't have a writing day. I just do it when I feel like it.
That's fantastic. You've got a lot of books on the burners, so to speak.
Yes. Well, interesting stuff.
I think once you start writing, it is very hard to stop. Your brain wants to take you into more and more interesting ideas.
Yes, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Kind of for a new book, it can jump at you in all sorts of ways. My wife and I went up last year in October. I write the occasional piece for Pearls and Irritations, which is set up by John Menadue, an independent blog, which has some very terrific copywriters and commentary on it. And I've written a few things for them, mainly about the arts and writing, but and painting, which is another interest. But we went up to the Australian National Piano Awards in October last year. That's in Shepparton, in the middle of fruit country. And the playing was just astonishing. It's on every second year. And they chose, I think it was 13 or 14 semi-finalists. These kids were fantastic, just fantastic. And I thought, gee, I should, because I recorded a lot of little pieces just for the hell of it. And when the grandkids are a little bigger, I'll send them to them. But I'd never learned or played right through a Beethoven sonata, and I thought I'll pick the simplest. And,
Methinks it's not so simple.
Well, someone said in one of the enormous amount of research on it I've already done, one of the commentators or experts or pianists said no Beethoven sonata is simple.
Yeah.
But these are labelled simple, and actually it was Beethoven's brother who found them in a bottom drawer 10 years after they'd been written as sort of exercises for kids or for students. 2 of them, Opus 49, number 1 and number 2. And he took them to a publisher who published them, and Beethoven didn't even know, he was, whether he liked it or. They're good, they're very good, but out of the 32 Beethoven piano sonatas, they're the 2 simplest. And so I'm trying to do one and writing, giving myself a year kind of a diary type book, as well as chapters on, piano playing, on pianos, on pianists.
That sounds fantastic. So what advice would you give to not necessarily debut authors, but the writer out there who wants to get their book published. They've been working on their book and they want to get that published. What advice would you give them?
Could be the best thing. Look, it's very, 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 very hard. Perhaps the people who have most chance of getting published will do stuff that's very pop, commercial, and out of them, I don't think most publishers are concerned all that much with literary style at the moment. They want stuff that people who aren't used to reading literature will buy. And as we know, they're mostly women who, bury their heads in great stories, lovely stories. So I don't know that that's really good advice. I could say, or you could do what I did and spend a lifetime trying to write properly, and read books like The Green Child, Herbert Reed. I'm a great believer. It's like playing the piano. You've got to have a good technique. And, in a lifetime of not playing enough, my technique isn't really good enough. But I spent a lifetime also writing. So I know technically how to write. And a lot of people who write don't know how to write. They tend to be repetitive, to get the words in the wrong places in sentences, to sometimes use the wrong words, to punctuate badly. All kinds of things that they do. Now, if a book publisher won't take on a book that's going to require an awful lot of editing to fix. So I just say, anybody who wants to write, if they spent 6 months just reading the books on how to write, they might do well. There are books on how to write fiction even, and they're good too. But the actual business of writing is something that you learn, and it takes a long time to get it right.
Yeah.
It's handy to have a leaning towards that. Some people might say, it's handy to have a certain talent for writing, but I think the bottom line is a lot of hard work in learning the how you write, so that and you think of the reader the whole time. We're thinking of the reader, so that it's easy for the reader to read what you write. That's the essential stuff.
That's absolutely terrific advice. And of course, if you've got the cash behind you, investing in an excellent editor would be of benefit as well, perhaps.
I think, people haven't for years ever needed to do any heavy editing of my books. They come in, they're in good shape right throughout. I've never had a book that's been chopped and turned into this bit goes there and that. And potentially I make few grammatical or syntactical or repetitive. A lot of them are repetitive mistakes. We use the same word within 2 or 3 lines.
Yep.
Of you've got to think of another word or think of a synonym for that word, that sort of thing. Occasionally I'll have a dangling whatever it is at the front of a sentence. and good
M dashes are my favourites.
Sorry?
M dashes are my favourites.
Yes. Oh, no, these are something with a comma after. I can't think of the art of speech, but yeah. So that's would be my advice. Learn to write.
Yeah.
And write. Right.
Fantastic. Well, tell me, so where can our listeners and viewers find you online?
stephendowns.com.au.
And I will say that there are some amazing blog pieces on your website that I definitely recommend that people have a read. Gives you a really good insight.
Thank you very much, Laurie.
You're very welcome. Well, thank you very much, Stephen, for your time tonight. I really appreciate you joining the podcast and allowing me to interview you, even though we had a few technical hiccups at the start of our session. I think it's gone very smoothly.
We got there in the end.
We
Thanks very
did
much,
indeed.
Laurie.
Not
My
a problem.
pleasure.
Bye for now.
Thank you, Stephen. What a wide-ranging interview and a really interesting person to chat to. His editing and his journalism and, being able to bring all of that. I love, speaks in a language you can understand, a legacy. I'm a bit of a legacy person. Conservative publishers, don't we all agree with that? And yes, he's German inspiration who wrote prose. Siebold, yes. I must admit, when we were going to chat with Stephen, I did go down some rabbit holes looking at the work that this person had put together. Yes. And he wanted to be a concert pianist, and his mum and dad said no. Really? It could have been.
I mean, you can see the creativity is coming out in a different way now, but how wonderful even at a later age to learn and go into that process of learning to play an instrument and then having the goal of playing such a piece is just, it's inspirational. So
my mum could play the piano really well, and she could play by ear. We all had a little bit of piano lessons just, to get us started on music. And I can follow music, the simple stuff, but when I see someone who just has the magic, it's just brilliant.
I did about a year, and my hand, I've got tiny hands. I have absolutely tiny hands. They are not reaching across a keyboard at all.
My mum had long fingers. She could get an octave and two more.
Yep. Well, my family, they're guitarists and drummers. So my brother's an amazing drummer. So is my niece, and I envy anyone who can play a musical instrument. It's just it's extraordinary, and they play by ear. So it's definitely amazing for the way people pick stuff up. So piano, great work, Stephen. Good luck with it.
Yes, good luck with that. Yes, he's creative. He always even tried to make his journalism creative. I like his advice. 6 months, just learn how to write, read about how to write. And the book about his cat was the most, is his most popular, his bestseller. So
which doesn't surprise me. It's we all,
yeah.
Although I don't think I can read a sad one. Yeah.
No, I miss my moggies too much.
Yes.
Well, my moggies are getting pretty old. I call them granny, and they're slowing down, but they're still really happy. They're still run up and down the hallway and do crazy stuff. All right. If you want Stephen's book mural, you could have been in on one of our giveaways because we gave it away a little while ago, but please jump on to either his website or onto your favourite bookstore and have a look at that because, really interesting, the psychopath and the smart psychopath. Anyway. All right. We need a couple of quotes, Laurie.
We do. Hang on. I had that. I did have an editing one, which I've lost off my screen, but it was along the lines of if you change every word of just to damn, you'll pick them up and you can cut them straight away. Because it'll show you don't need them. And I thought I will find who said it and I will mention it next session. But I thought that was a really good that's a really good quote. Octavia Butler, who I love to quote at the best time. So first, forget inspiration. Habit is more dependable. Habit will sustain you when you're inspired or not. Habit, whether you're inspired or not. Habit will help you finish and polish your stories. Inspiration won't. Habit is persistence in practice. I thought, given Stephen's talking about editing and how important that is, that, having that habit of sitting down to write or whenever you do, whether it's early morning, whether it's at night, whether it's on the train, whatever is in your brain, it will continue to push you on when you're just over it.
Yeah, and sometimes you are. Absolutely.
More often than not.
I'm going to give you one of my favourite quotes from Pliny the Elder, a Greek gentleman. So, true glory consists in doing what deserves to be written, in writing what deserves to be read, and in so living as to make the world happier and better for our living in it.
I like that.
I like that one. So, Pliny the Elder, I have to tell you about it. So, he was, in fact, the first wine critic. He was Gaius Plinius Secundus. known as Pliny the Elder. He was an author, a naturalist, a
Mhm.
philosopher, a naval and army commander of the early Roman Empire, and a friend of the Emperor Vespasian. And in fact, the poor bloke died when
Mm.
he was in the harbour outside Vesuvius, when Vesuvius went off and went in to see if he could help, and of course was overcome by all the toxic smoke.
Oh, goodness me. And I found the author of that other quote I was
Yes,
looking at,
yes.
Mark Twain,
Of course.
of all people. And it's substitute damn every time you're inclined to write very. Your editor will delete it, and the writing will be just as it should be, but without the berries.
Without the berries, which is good.
Mark
And
Twain.
yeah,
There you go.
that is a good thing. Yeah. Very good. All right. It has been fun as always
Yes.
chatting. And this
Yes.
is the end of episode 136.
Yep.
Stay tuned for 137. And please support Australian authors, buy their books, borrow their books in the library, write to your local member about the AI theft that is going on at the moment. And please, be kind to your authors when they come out looking like death warmed up
and read a book. Read a book.
read a
Be
book.
seen reading a book. Have books on display.
Yes.
Show books. Give books away. It's wonderful.
Yes, and give books to all ages.
Yes, yes.
So yes, I'm
and
currently
all different kinds. I will get, and I know we're about to sign off, and I'm waffling longer. But
waffle away.
one of the biggest things that I had in my takeaways, particularly as a teacher, is that there are so many books for kids, but if you don't buy books that have a little girl lead or a little boy lead or a whoever whoever, an animal, there are so many animals, but most of the books you'll get, particularly generational. Oh, I love that as a kid, I'll get that for my kid. And if you actually do a bit of an audit and have a look at your bookshelves, having little boys and little girls reading about each other, they empathize about someone else, they empathize about whether it's a Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander, whether they're African American, doesn't matter who the central character of the story is. Books get kids to empathize with a different point of view. And really have a look at the picture books you've got at home. How many of them for the little ones star a little girl? If you've got only boys, you'd be surprised. It's probably not a lot. Same with the little boys, with the little girls. How many books do you have with little boy heroes if you've only got girls at home, for example? So it's really interesting. Just share the love. Share the love.
Or get a rainbow chicken
or get a rainbow chicken.
Where the names are so diverse that some of them have different
It's a
pronouns.
talking chicken.
They're not she's, he,
It's
they,
a
they.
talking
It's
chicken.
a fantasy.
Come on.
Diverse characters, read widely, broaden your children's experience. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
We need to sign off and say, of course, remember in all of that to read more Aussie books. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Let's meet again when magic happens.